Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co, and today I'm reviewing Hellbringer from Maxime Gauthier. Hellbringer is a 1-4 player roguelike game, and if it wasn't clear from this sheet of paper I'm holding, this is a prototype, all rules and components subject to change. I got the cards in this box over here, and I don't have an actual box, so we got this. Although I did make sure the shirt matched, so we do have that. This is a prototype. I'll have a link to the crowdfunding campaign down below, and like I said already, this is a 1-4 player roguelike adventure in which you're going to be choosing a character, or multiple players will be choosing their characters, and then go diving into the deep dungeon to take down the various enemies along the way, ultimately resulting in them taking down the final boss. This is a scenario-based game. You can play through the tutorial, or you can pick and choose a scenario that will have a specific way that you're structuring it, and what you do as you encounter various tome cards along the way, and then eventually which enemy you're going to be fighting against at the very end. To that end, you're going to choose your scenario, you're going to choose your characters. I have it set up as a 2-player game over here. Your character comes with their own unique card that you'll have access to over here. Over here I have the Monk Strike for the Monk over here, and we have the Warrior Sword for the Warrior. It also comes with various stats, so you can't see it that well from over here, but over here the Warrior has 50 health over there. It has 0 armor, we have 2 sight, we have 1 energy, 1 skill, and 5 cards that we can hold in our hand. And over here we have 40 health, we have 10 armor, 3 sight, 1 energy, 2 skills, and 5 cards we can hold. These are numbers you're going to be erasing and or replacing as you go through the game and up your stats, because you will be going through a lot of, well, stat building in the game. To that end, the way you're going to be doing on your turn is you're going to go through a sequence of taking actions based on the energy that you have. So you have this 1 energy right now, which we will have the opportunity to upgrade, but with that 1 energy, we can try to figure what we want to do, and for the most part, you're going to be looking at your cards and taking a look at their energy cost along the way, as well as their class and what they're doing. Are they going to be a piece of equipment? This Amulet of Strength, I can spend 1 energy to put this into play, and if I do so, that little purple icon means it goes down here where it lines up with the purple slot on a character. I can put that in play over here, and I'll get +2 strength, +2 red dice to the next time I roll a sequence of dice over there. Maybe I'll do that. I could do that, or alternatively, you know what? I think instead I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to actually go ahead and attack with my Monk Strike. So I'm going to spend 1 energy. I'm going to play my Monk Strike. My Monk Strike is actually free to play. This is a skill, so it's going to go into our skill slot, and we can currently hold 2 skills unless we upgrade that further. So with my 2 skills over here, we're going to play this card. We're going to use 1 energy to activate it. You can activate each card once per turn, and we're going to roll 2 red dice +1 if we have no gear on our red slot. This is the Monk. He likes to wave and move with the flow and not really have weapons in his hand. So to that end, we're going to grab these 3 red dice, and we're going to choose a target. I want the weakest target I can, and you'll see why in a second. I want to target the Wraith. Although this is where we talk about the vision and how it works in the game. You see, every character has a vision. The Monk has 3. The Warrior over here has 2, which means from these cards that are in play, the Crocodile with a vision distance of 1 is in sight, and we could deal damage to it. The Wraith with a vision of 4 is unfortunately out of our range. We can't hurt him. He's not visible. And the Arachnid over here has a vision of 3, which means we're going to put him to the middle spot, which is just a quick way of saying that some characters have access to them, some don't, so you have that quick visual reminder as you play. If you're playing a solo game, you won't need this middle slot at all. Now that we've established that, I think I'm going to go ahead and attack the Arachnid, because with 15 total health, 5 + 10, we have a better chance of killing him, and right now we are trying to kill him. We're going to roll our dice, we're going to see what we got. We got a 10, 5, and a 5. That's going to be a total of 20 damage, which means we kill the Arachnid, and this is the fun part. We are now going to take that card, and it's going to level up our character. In my case, I'm going to go ahead and take it. I'm going to put it over here, and that's going to be a skill point in our energy, which means we now go from having 1 energy to having 2 energy instead. Let's go ahead and put that down. We now have 2 energy instead over here. And from there, that's going to be what we have over here. So we have our 2 energy, and we're going to go ahead and now have 2 energy to be able to play them on the other cards. So now that we have 2, we can go ahead and end up playing that card I wanted to anyways. That Amulet of Strength is going to come out anyways now. And now, next time I attack, I'll have 2 extra dice I can roll, which means I'm already starting to level up fairly quickly. I'm all out of energy. There's nothing else I can do, which means we can move to the Warrior. The Warrior can take their turn. They're going to use their energy to drive their cards. And let's go through some of the cards in the game so you have an understanding of how these cards play before we go to the enemy turn. Over here we have a few different cards. We have this card over here, which this is an augment that you can play on top of other items. You can see over here the Amulet of Strength has a little space for 1 augment, which means we can put this over here, and this will give us +1 to our hand size. If we play this down, costs us 0 energy, we can place it right away on that first turn. Over here we have the Endless Bag. This is going to be a gear slot. It's going to go down to the bottom left corner, as you can see from that blue over there, and it's going to give us, +2 hand size, and you can take back in hand equipped and unused gear or gems or augments on your turn, enchantments on your turn. We have Enslavement, which is a skill. Now the way skills work in the game is you can use skills of your color or skills that are generically black, but you can't use skills of someone else's color on an ongoing basis. Rather, you can use them as a one-time basis, meaning if we go ahead, if we are currently playing as the monk, whose skill color is yellow, and if we want to play this ice arrow, we can pay the 1 energy to go ahead and use the skill, but we don't actually hold on to it. We will simply use it as if it's a one-time ability card, and then it will go away. So you have that flexibility even as you draw cards that don't play into your engine, but you don't have the same level of flexibility. And that's basically the stuff we have over here. Anything else we have? We have the antidote over here. This can be a potion we can use. We have Swift Strike, another skill. We have some armor. This composite bow over here, if we use it, would go on top of the green and red, effectively a two-handed weapon, taking up 2 spots, giving us +2 range, +2 eyesight, 2 arrow shot, +1 for each 2 sight that we hold, and if we're blue, it also gives us an additional benefit as well. And that's going to be how these class cards work. They have different skills, equipments, abilities, enchantments, augments, all those things that you're using to upgrade your character, and you're all drawing them from this giant stack of cards over here, but past that, there's also some not nice things mixed into the cards, but we'll get to that shortly. When we're done with our turn, when both characters have taken their turn, the enemies will first replenish your hand at the end of the turn, and when you replenish your hand, part of the reason that's relevant is because as you draw cards back into your hand, you draw up to your hand size, but you also may find that you slowly run into either tomes, which will give you a narrative aspect that you have to go read the tome for your scenario, and read the narrative as well as whatever else it has you do, as well as there are combat cards that are going to have you draw additional enemies that are going to enter the queue, and this one's a 2-distance enemy, so now it's in play as well. You'll draw replacement cards whenever you draw tomes or combat cards, but it does mean that you have to be mindful that as you draw through the deck, you are both getting more things your character can benefit from, but also bringing out the enemies a little faster. Once the enemies are out, once it's now their turn, the enemies are going to go ahead and attack, and they're going to do so by adding up all their dice and choosing who to attack. In this case, we're going to roll this die to see who they attack. This die will determine whether you're attacking either your hero or possibly companions. I haven't actually shown you a companion over here. Let's see if we can find you a companion. Over here, we have a dwarf. A dwarf companion you can utilize. This is a companion. Every character can have one of them in play, and when you put them in play, they'll activate every single turn. So this companion will cost 4 energy, but once you put him into play, he has his own health, his own armor, and he's going to go ahead and attack every single turn when he can. And so that's going to be something that goes into play on your board, so you're going to have extra, well, things that help you, but they're people that help you instead. To that end, when you roll this dice, it's going to determine whether it attacks yourself, whether it attacks the companions, all heroes. It's going to determine how the enemies activate, but this is kind of all or nothing. We're going to go ahead and add up the enemy pool, which this crocodile has 2 red dice. Over here, we have 3 green dice for this, what's it called, venomous bite over here. This character, this giant snake, is immune to green dice, by the way, so you cannot attack it with green dice. And over here, we have 2 more green dice, and additionally, -10 to targets hit until the end of the enemy's turn. You're going to add up that entire pool, roll it, and we have 5, 10, 20, 25, and 30, which the good thing is, that's actually 35 over here. The good thing is none of our characters have only 35 health. It's 40, 10, and 50 over here, so we have 50 each, which means they are not going to be negatively affected by the attack. When you play through this game, it's all or nothing. If you deal 10 damage to a 20 damage enemy, you did nothing. If they deal 35 damage to you and you have 50 health, they did nothing. It is all or nothing when you roll those dice. You are either going to penetrate through and kill the enemies or not. That's how the combat works. When that's done, you're going to go back to your turn, repeat the cycle until eventually you clear your way through the cards to the next location card. Drawing a new location card, if we can go ahead and find one over here, drawing the next location card will give you more enemies. It'll give you additional eyesight to the enemies, so enemies that were previously within range will slowly move out of range if you're not leveling up your eyesight. You're going to draw more enemies over here. You're going to also have enemies coming through the various deck, and you're going to be doing that until you eventually encounter the big bad. And if you were thinking this game is too easy, that's where I get to show you what you're facing off at the end of this. Over here, this particular Dark Mage for this scenario over here has 95 health, 55 armor, a range of 4, although by the time you reach him, by the time you encounter him, because of the location cards, his range will actually probably be 8, and then we're going to go ahead and have to deal with this guy who's just an absolute pain to deal with, and is also going to be summoning a Succubus Demon at the same time. And these guys are slowly going to be depleting you if you're not able to take them out, so you better hope you have leveled up what you need by the time you face off against those. And that is basically Hellbringer. You're going to pick your characters, you're going to choose your starting characters, you're going to choose your scenario, you're going to be going through a deck and building out your character starting from the very first round of play until eventually you are strong enough to take on the big bad or die along the way. And with that, let's go ahead and dive into the review, starting off with ease of play. Ease of play is harder for me to say on this one. This is a prototype, rules, components, and all that subject to change. And I will say, I definitely had trouble with the rules on this one. I had to hop on TTS with the designer to get a good view of how it actually plays. I don't think the game itself is that complicated. To me, the rules were not intuitive. It might just be a me issue, but I definitely had to struggle through those and had to hop on with the designer to get things clarified in order to play the game. Past that, though, a session will run you anywhere between 60 and 90 minutes, depending on how much time you're taking it and depending on player count. And overall, it does move pretty quickly. I'd say even 60, even 90 is pushing it, although I have not played through all the scenarios. I've only played through a few, so I think, let's call it 60 plus to play through the game. As far as what I like, don't like, and can see others not liking, starting off with what I like, which is the different characters encourage different playstyles, to a large extent. Different characters have their own gear. First of all, they start with their own gear, and it's an interesting way of doing things, because the characters have their own starting abilities, and their own starting stats, and their own starting card, and that gives them their own flavor. But then that flavor further evolves as you draw cards from the deck, because cards that, for me, if I use that person's card, it's a one-time use card. But if I use my cards, they can become skills and stay in play, and that difference and shift in terms of the way the deck allows you to build towards your character while being the same deck towards everyone means it encourages different playstyles as far as how you're going to go through the game, how you're going to build your character, and what types of gear and equipment you're going to prioritize. And there's lots of leveling up in this game. Every time you defeat a monster, you're leveling yourself up, and at first it can seem like a cakewalk, at first it can seem too easy, but that will quickly go away either as you make your way towards the boss or as you try other scenarios. You'll find that the game likes to throw things at you. There's a few starting monsters to make it nice and easy until you level up, but then after those few starting monsters, the deck is just packed full of monsters, and then of course the final big bad that will make sure that it is a very difficult challenge to actually progress through this, a rewarding challenge, but a difficult one that you have to level up along the way. And there's tons of cards in the deck. Again, this card deck over here, you're only really going to go through a small portion of these cards in any given game, which means there's a ton of mixing and matching and just card variability as far as the equipment, the gear, the allies, all the various things you're going to find through that deck. There's an absolute ton of variability baked into the experience, and the whole aspect I mentioned already, the ability to use any card but have them cater towards your hero, just means that every dive into this game, whether you're playing it solo, whether you're playing a two-hander, whether you're playing with other characters or whatnot, it's going to be a different experience. And that's before we even get into the variability of the scenarios that, again, are going to give you different reasons and incentives to continue to dive back into this. And that's before we dive into the expansion content, which I have not had a chance to dive into any of the expansion content. I only got this game, well, a few days before the Kickstarter launched, but overall, I've seen the expansion content shown to me, and it looks very much like it's going to further add to your experience, giving you more fun things to engage with, although this is not a review of the expansion content, just me saying that what I've seen definitely looks interesting and compelling. As far as what I don't like in the game, there's two things. The first is going to be, I don't love the graphic design and the rules as well. This, as I said already, prototype, subject to change, but the iconography, all the stuff over here, the text is incredibly small, the icons are small, a lot of things are not necessarily as intuitive or clear from a graphic design or iconography standpoint as I would like. I think it can be easily cleaned up to a large degree, but overall, the art I'm totally fine with, but the presentation past that, and even the box art as well, doesn't pull me in. This is a game I covered because I saw a lot of people, because the designer reached out to me, I saw a lot of people who said nice and positive things about the game, and so I was looking at it from there, but if I were just looking at this game on its own, it's not one I would have otherwise dove into. I'm very happy I did. It's an excellent game, but the graphic design does not pull me in, and like I said already, the rules as well were difficult to go through. And then lastly, I'll say that I don't love writing your stats on a board over here. I don't love that system. I'd rather, well, anything else. It's not the worst. It's just, it kind of adds an unnecessary roll and write kind of element. Not really roll and write. I guess you're rolling dice. So you're rolling dice and writing your stats. So it adds an unnecessary degree of that to this. I'd rather some other system. It's not the end of the world, just a small little nitpick there. As far as what I can see others not liking, first of all, the all or nothing approach can be very luck dependent and therefore frustrating. By the all or nothing, I mean the idea that you either completely punch through an enemy or they completely punch through you, and there is no middle ground. That means the enemies on an early turn, if they get a good enough roll that is out of the bounds of what they should have rolled, they can squash you when they should not have squashed you, and that can be frustrating. It means your progress towards defeating an enemy can completely be halted by 2 or 3 bad rolls in a row, slowing down how you can progress through the game. And so that all or nothing approach, it doesn't bother me, but it might be something you find frustrating, especially when you get to the boss in the end game. The fact that the entire game can come down to single rolls as opposed to the slow, what's the word for it? There's a word I'm thinking of, but when you slowly reduce your enemy's health, I can't recall the word, but the idea that there's not a pacing to it, rather there's a degree of just it either all hits or all does not hit, which might be frustrating. Additionally, I enjoy the process of having a deck of cards with the ability to use cards in different ways. Oh look, that's a card from your class, I can use as a one-time ability, or alternatively I can just discard it at the end of my turn, because you could discard cards at the end of your turn, but you might find that frustrating. You might find the fact that having a deck of cards where there's cards that aren't really suited to your class and your playstyle, you might find that frustrating. As far as final thoughts on Hellbringer, I really like this game, with the main caveat around the art and graphic design, or the graphic design I should say. To me, the gameplay alone, this is an easy 4 out of 5. I like what's happening over here. I enjoy the game. I find that it's very rewarding to slowly build up your stats every time you kill an enemy, to build up your character. It's just solid fun, and I think that my rating would only improve as I dive into the expansion based on what I've seen of the expansion content. And even the more scenarios and stuff. There's a ton of ways to dive into this game, and I've really enjoyed what I've seen so far, and I am eager to dive back into it again. The caveat is that I really do find over time more and more, I find that games that don't have graphic design that pulls me in, I find they are harder to table, that when I'm looking at the other games on my shelf, they get pulled off less. And to that one, this kind of does border a 3.5 at the same time. I don't know exactly where that lands, so gameplay alone, easily a 4. The full package of graphic design, art, rules, and all that, prototype, subject to change, but a 3.5. So kind of in the mix there. Take what you want out of that. Hopefully, my words are bringing more meaning to that than the actual rating. Don't focus too heavily on the number. Focus on what I'm saying and how that works for you. But the gameplay alone in this, very solid, very enjoyable. If you're looking for a fun solo co-op puzzle, an easy 4 out of 5 on that count alone. As far as other game recommendations, first of all, Slay the Spire. Not yet available, but it's definitely kind of the same genre of having a card-based system as you progress through a sequence of enemies and either win or die along the way. And similarly, another game currently on crowdfunding as we speak is Encountered Shattered Wastes. Another game that kind of gives you that aspect of trying to face your way off against a boss. That one's more directly a boss from stage 1, but similar idea of building out your character, upgrading your character, and trying to take down a boss in a sort of JRPG experience. And with that, that is basically it. I hope you found this review helpful. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. Hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one.